Welcome to New Beginnings Farmstead. This is our A team. And we're going to introduce ourselves, and then you can introduce yourself and tell us all about your farm. All right. We have Egidio, who you can't see. There's his hand. I'm Elisa. I'm the one who's been in contact with you. We have Ryan, Julie, and here's another hand from Jeff. So welcome, Danz Maple. Are you Dan?
No, actually, I am Mike. I am now the head bottle washer and do it all one-man operation that took over from my dad, who was Dan's.
Very nice. So tell us, where are you located in Wisconsin?
Okay, we are just north of Suring, Wisconsin, which is about 65 miles northeast of Green Bay.
Okay.
So,
wow.
And I just made it in here today, believe it or not, because our sap is actually running today.
Very nice. So tell us about your farm. How long have you been? You said you took over from your father. Was he a maple syrup producer?
Yes, he was. And a logger and many other things over his lifetime. And he took over the farm from his dad. Oh. So this farm has been in our family since 1937.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So very nice.
We've been on the same 120 acres here, which we've just expanded now a couple of years ago to 160 acres. Right now, presently, we're tapping 1,000 taps this year for our maple business. Otherwise, the primary business since my dad took over was logging. So this property is a wooded property, and they did maple in the springtime just to kind of fill in the niche. But otherwise, it was logging and firewood sales is what we primarily did off of here. And I took over running the maple side of things here probably about 10 years ago. And when my dad used to tap, it was buckets and spiles. And when my grandfather did it, it was buckets and spiles with a hand crank drill to put the taps in. And they would make about 25 gallons a year doing that. And that was enough that my grandmother, she would actually take the maple syrup and replace all the sugar she used to use with the maple syrup. So instead of using processed sugar, she used maple syrup. Well, now that I took over, like I said, about 10 years ago when my dad, this is kind of a funny story, we put out 400 buckets with taps and spiles. And after we got them all out, my dad said, well, y'all have fun. I'm going on vacation.
Nice.
So he took off for a month during sap season at the very beginning. And I was like, you know what? After 3 or 4 times going out in the woods and collecting all 400 buckets and walking all that way, I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So I initially started out with my ATV, and I made a little rig for on the back side of it that I could go to each bucket and I could suck out the bucket instead of having to truck around carry the buckets to the holding tank and carry it back. And I was like, well, there's got to be a better way to do that. So then I put in 3/16 tubing and brought that all back to a collection point. Well, the first year I was like, I'm not too sure if this is going to work because it's flat ground. We have maybe 1% to 2% grade all the way through. So I hooked a sure flow pump up to it to create a little suction on the line. And we only put in 150 taps that year just to see how it would perform. And my 150 taps tripled what we got on the 400.
Wow.
So it was like cool. So then we added more taps that way. And we went up to 400 taps. And that was about 4 years ago. And that's what we kind of sat at till last year. And we made about 150, 200 gallons of syrup each year off of that.
Wow.
So then this last summer, I decided I'm going to go kind of hog wild. And I put in a whole main line, inch and a half main line, 1,000 feet of that all the way up through our woods, through our maple sugar bush, and put all the lines in. And this is our first year with that. And so far, just today, they started running about 1 o'clock. We've collected almost 300 gallons of sap. And
Wow.
Wow.
we went up to 1,000 taps too. So with plans for next year, we're going to add another 1,000. So we'll be kind of growing the
Wow.
business as the money allows us.
Wow.
So,
And you're boiling it with wood and an evaporator?
yep, fired with wood in the evaporator. We also have an RO that we use, so we concentrate our sap from the 2% to 2.5% that it comes in the woods, out of the woods at. We concentrate it up to about 8 to 10%. And we fire on a 2x8 Smoky Lake evaporator, raised flue evaporator. And that'll do, when we push it, about 65 to 70 gallons an hour. It'll boil off. So kind of works out with our setup, and it's all wood fired. All the wood comes off the property here. And we have a firewood processor that I also invested in, so that make that process easier. And we load it all into totes, and then as we need it, we bring it into the syrup shack.
And what kind of products do you sell? How do you sell it?
Half. Last year, like I said, we made about 150 gallons last year. We sold 75 gallons to the bulk dealers, and we sold 75 gallons on our own. We sell it in quart jars. I sell it as maple syrup, or we also make maple sugar. So I've sold about half that 75 gallons went into maple sugar. So out of 1 quart of maple syrup, you get about 2.25 pounds of maple sugar.
Wow. That's more than I thought.
That's more than I thought too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we don't do sugar here.
No? Okay. Yeah, it's about 2.25 pounds in a quart of maple syrup. So if you take a quart of maple syrup, pour it in your pan, turn it into sugar, you get a quart of sugar back.
Wow, that's great.
Huh.
Yep. So, and we sell that. I sell that along with the maple syrup. When I'm not doing maple syrup, I am a traveling nurse, so I travel out and about. And this way I can make arrangements so that my time to be here, I can have that time off. So I don't have to worry about, okay, well, I got to go to work today. Do I do the maple, or do I go to work? I have it set up so that I can do that.
Wow. Where are you in your season right now? You said it was flowing today. When did you tap?
Yeah. I tapped the 7th of February, but it was still frozen at that time. Last year I got caught not tapping soon enough. So this year I was like, I'm going to make sure I'm tapped in by February 7th. This way, if I get a warm up in February, that's odd, which of course we didn't get until 3 days ago. So my tap's been in for about 14 days, which isn't too bad. But today is the first day. We had Saturday, it was up to 33 degrees. Sunday, it was 38 degrees. Today, it got up to 52 degrees, and they finally started running about 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, we've seen very similar circumstances here. We tapped around the same time, and ours flew today.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
I was saying we've seen very similar circumstances. We tapped around the same time, and we had very cold temperatures, and today we had an incredible run.
Yep. So, and they're still running out there right now. So I'm thinking that they're probably going to run all night, because we're only supposed to get down to like 32 degrees tonight. So I'll probably go out there in the morning. I'll probably have well over 800, 900 gallons sitting out there.
Wow. That's great. So where do you sell your products? Do you sell them? Do you do an open house? Like what? How do you sell your products?
Our products are primarily sold word of mouth. We have people that come to us. We got our core people that always buy from us. and they buy a lot of the maple syrup. When I'm out and about traveling, I always make sure that I carry 2 to 3 cases of maple syrup with me and 2 to 3 cases of maple sugar. Um, on the back of my camper, it says maple syrup sold here. So um, when I pull in someplace, a lot of people will see that and they'll just stop in and say, "Hey," I'm like, "Yeah, I got maple syrup here," and we'll sell it to you by the quart. We'll sell it by the gallon. We got a couple places because I am not a licensed producer per se. I'm selling underneath the cottage laws in Wisconsin, so I can only sell so much to the bulk dealers, up to $5,000, and the rest has to be out the door sales type thing. So I can sell at farmers markets and stuff like that, but I haven't needed to go to the farmers market. I've been able to expand my market just by word of mouth. So
Nice. Now, do you do an open house where people from the community come in and do tours or anything else?
we have a family and friends gathering every August where everybody is invited from the community to come out. And I know that's not during maple season, but we do tours of the woods. We take people on hay rides through the woods. They can see all the trees that are tapped, and we can talk about that. And we go, then they can go tour through the sugar house where we'll actually put water in the evaporator and have that going just to show them the steam coming off. And then we have it's a booyah. We do what's called a booyah. It's basically a hearty stew that we do here, and that's our main course for that. And then of course, one of the ingredients in the 50 gallons of booyah that we make is 1 quart of maple syrup goes into it.
Wow.
And
What
then
else is
we
in it? I've never heard of booyah before.
Oh, okay.
What's it?
Booyah is a Wisconsin thing, I think. It's kind of like I said, it's a really hearty stew. It's primarily made with celery, chicken, beef, carrots, corn, and you just basically start in the morning. You start boiling it, getting it all cooked down. And it makes a very nice hearty soup at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So
And
that's when everybody.
does the traditional recipe call for maple syrup, or is that a you thing?
That's a me thing. I added that to it. Adds a little sweetness to it.
Wow.
The original recipe was just chicken and beef and celery and carrots and corn, and that was the original recipe. A few other things that go into it, like a can of tomato juice and stuff like that. But I added the syrup because I like the saltiness, but I also like a little sweet with my salty. So, and the maple hint that it adds to it just adds that little gotcha type thing.
Yeah.
So then
Wow.
during that time, also we obviously sell maple syrup during that time and maple sugar. We average maybe about $600 to $700 just for that, just in sales on that. But
Wow.
it's a bunch of friends that get together and just have a good time, and anybody from the community can stop on out. Everybody's always invited. So last
Wow, that
year
sounds great.
I think we had 250, 300 people here for that.
Wow.
Wow. So is this other places, other farms or businesses on that day also do a similar event? Or this is
Nope.
just something you do?
Nope, this is just something that we do on that day. The booyah is a very normally it's like an October, November type time frame, but August also happens to be my wife and I's anniversary, so we do it on that weekend every year, and that's our anniversary gift to each other. Is just to
Yeah.
have all our friends and family and whoever wants to come out and celebrate with us and do the maple, promote the maple, and promote our business a little bit.
Nice.
So your sugar bush, is it all sugar maple, or do you have red or any other types of maple?
We have primarily silver maple, and sugar maple, silver and hard maple. We do have some reds, and we tap them all the same. We don't parcel them out or say, well, that's a red, I'm not going to tap that one. Everything gets tapped. And when the reds start to bud, that's basically the end of our season. Then we just call it good. So, and we produce what I consider some of the best maple syrup in Wisconsin. But that's Tom.
Are there a lot of producers in your area?
Yes, there's quite a few. Just down the road from us, there's a guy that taps over 15,000 taps.
Wow.
We got several thousand tap bushes that are close by to us. So yeah, it's not a small thing here. It's we're small. We run a fairly small outfit. But one thing about our maple business is it pays for itself first, and then we expand. We never expand without having the cash to do that. So that's why it's kind of been a slow, ongoing process for us to move this out. Like I said, last year I put in probably about $15,000 into our woods, and that was all paid for by the maple syrup.
Oh, that's great. How can people find out more about your farm?
They can go to danzmapleproducts.com. DANZ. Mapleproducts.com.
Make sure we put that on the podcast. DANZ, danzmapleproducts.com.
.com. Yep.
Right.
That's where we're located at. So
that's great.
yeah, we've been probably over 100 years of experience doing maple up in this area. Just my family alone. So
wow.
my grandfather did it with his father, and I would assume that he did it with his father. I don't know, but I know that my dad did it with his dad, and then I've done it with my dad and my grandfather, and now I'm taking it over from my dad, and now my kids also have been coming up to help out with it. So it's been kind of a generational thing over the years here.
Wow.
And it's just been passed down from one to the other. So it's
and
kind
are
of
your
our
children
tradition.
to take it over from you?
I hope so. But if they don't, they don't.
They need to, though, right? It's part of the family.
Yeah. I agree. But our land is set up here so that it will pass on from generation to generation. So that we've taken care of that so that everything is set between there's myself and my brother and obviously my dad. We've set it up so that this land can and will stay in our family for generations to come.
And do you live right there on the property?
When I'm not traveling, yes. I stay in my mobile home. I have a 50-foot fifth wheel that I travel in. So my dad has the house. I have the fifth wheel. So he has his space and I have my space.
Nice.
Because
I've learned. Brother on the farm?
No, my brother, he doesn't do much with the farm. He helps out with the bookwork of making sure everything runs correctly. He does that portion of it. And then I do the labor. I don't know if that's a fair division, but that's how we've set it up.
Doesn't seem like it.
But he's got his family too, and they have other priorities than this. So I think with him helping out with what he helps out with, that's more than enough. It works for us. So he keeps me on the straight and narrow. He says, "You're dreaming on that one. You got to have the money first." So,
see, out of all this, I got him full timer, and that's what I want to do.
Very nice.
Well, I figured it up. Next year we want to build our building so that we can get our processor's license. So, and then that plus the expansion up to another 2,000, up to a total of about 2,000 to 2,500 taps. That's about as much as one person can do.
One person?
Wow.
Yes.
You do this alone?
Yes, I do. Pretty much. I mean, I have help on the weekends every once in a while, but I do this pretty much by myself. But I've automated a lot of the processes. You know, what we used to have to do manually by collecting the buckets, that's all out to one collection point. When it comes in, it goes into the bulk tank, it gets RO'd, and that's all set up automatically, so that runs on its own. And then it pumps it out into another holding tank. Well, then I got pumps that move all this stuff all over, so instead of having to hook things up and move things around, it's just I flip a button, turn a couple switches, and it runs up into the head tank and then runs into the evaporator. So, yeah, I pretty much got this set up. I mean, my dad helps, but my dad's 87 years old, so.
Bless him.
Wow.
So, but
Yep.
you're splitting wood though, too, right?
Yep. I do that on my time off during the summer.
You're awesome.
Well, you
Wow.
gotta do what you gotta do, right? I mean, that's part of life, you know. I mean, if you want to have, and this to me is not work. This is fun.
Yeah.
You know, if it was work, I wouldn't do it. And to me, it's fun. But once I get up to 2,500 taps, that'll be about as much as one person can do, and that'll be enough to replace my income for the year. So
Nice.
that's
Wow,
kind
that's
of the
great.
you know, I'm getting up there in age myself. I'm getting close to that retirement age too, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do when I retire? Actually retire. You know.
Wow.
And so, yep. So my youngest boy, he's interested in it. He comes up during the summer and helps me out with splitting wood and stuff like that. My dad still actually runs. I'll go out and cut the trees down that need to be cut down, but he'll go out and pick them up with the forwarder and bring them back and load them up onto the log rollway to run into the firewood processor. So yeah, so he still does quite a bit of stuff. You know, he does what he can do, and then what he can't do, he's like, I used to do that. Now it's your turn.
We should come see your operation for some inspiration.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, you know,
else have any?
it's not big time. You know, it's far from being big time. You know, I mean, we got a 900-gallon bulk tank, and if I didn't have the RO, I'm thinking I'm going to be pretty well maxed out this year just with the RO that we have in order to get that bulk tank down to make room for more sap.
Yep.
So, but like I said, as we move forward, everything kind of pays for itself forward. So, like I said, that's kind of our operation in the nutshell. Like I said, it started out kind of a shoestring operation, and now we're kind of progressing forward as we move along in the size of our operation.
Yeah, we were just saying, Mike, when you went off, when we just very impressive. We all know and appreciate the work that goes into doing maple syrup, and for somebody to do it and do it essentially by themselves is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Very impressive.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
thank you. But like I said, my dad helps out where he can, and my kids help out when they can. You know, which isn't very often, but every once in a while they come out and they show me and show up and surprise me. I'm like, sure, now all the hard work's done. Now all we're doing is cooking.
So I have the one question just to follow up. How much, when you're boiling, how much maple syrup do you get an hour?
I average about, depending on how high I take the bricks of the sap. If I take it up to the 10% where I normally do it at, I average about 8 gallons of maple syrup an hour
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
off of
Wow.
our evaporator.
Yeah, you said you're running
So,
2x8, right? 2x8
Yep.
raised flue? Yeah.
2x8 raised flue, smoky lake with the air induction, and so when it's cooking, it's cooking. You know, you feed that thing about every 5 minutes. So,
Yeah, that's nice. Nice system. Yeah.
yep.
That's great.
No, that's
So
great. Excellent, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all do maple too, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how much
Yep.
did y'all make last year?
Average. We're trying to hit around 70 to 100 gallons. We've been averaging 70 to 80 the last couple of years. It's seasonal, right? We're kind of preaching to the choir here, but on our end of it, we're just trying to, at this point, make it more efficient. We all have full-time jobs. We do it when we can. We're kind of weekend boilers, although we've done midweek boils in the past. And for us, the RO is a big essential piece of equipment. Like you said, we go from like 1.5 around here to about 8% on a single pass. And then we got to boil it, and we're running a 3x10. We're running a 3x10 liter evaporator. Nice system, wood fired. So the same thing. We're getting wood and splitting it and bringing it down. We put it in totes, and similarly that we're doing it, but we're doing it as a group or as a family, we're all working together. We're not like a single man operation, so, but what you're doing is pretty impressive. Like I said, we can all appreciate how much work goes into it and the time it takes. And even now, we get done with this recording tonight. We're all suiting up and going into the woods with some headlamps and collecting. Had a good run today.
Oh, good. Are you still doing buckets or?
Yes and no. There's one of us here, this guy, that likes to sneak buckets out when we're not looking. And so most of the stuff is either 55s to a collection point or on high vacuum. About half the taps we have, 300 and something, are probably on high vacuum. We're trying to get the vacuum extended to the other part of the sugar bush, but we have some terrain issues we're working through. But every so often we'll be walking through the woods and going, who put that bucket there? Why is that bucket hanging from the tree? What's going on here? And so, he's anxious to try to get as much as possible.
He's not the only one. My dad likes to put buckets around the house. This year, when I first left, I was gone for this last weekend. I come back and I got like 35-gallon buckets all around the front of the yard. And I'm like, I didn't put those out.
Yeah, I got to tell you, usually just before the season starts, I go into Sugar House and our storage sheds, and I take all the buckets and hide them someplace else, just so that I leave a couple out just to make sure he's not going to go crazy on me. But I usually try to hide the buckets. Otherwise, he loves doing stuff old school. So yeah, I've been trying to get a oil from the gas-fired evaporator. I'm getting too old for this stuff. But
see, I like
right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Listen, we have a good time with it. We're very blessed. We recognize that. Yep. But we can certainly appreciate the work that you're doing. That is unbelievable. Good for you. Good for
anybody that does maple understands that maple is a lot of work. Hence the price point. If you go into the store, you can see the price point of it. Around up in northern Wisconsin here, between $16 and $22 a quart is what we get.
Okay.
So in the store, you're looking at between $16 and $18 for a quart, but obviously in the store, you're not getting just my sugar bush. It's not just this person's sap coming in, cooking it. A lot of other producers around us buy a lot of sap every year. So what they're getting is, every sugar bush has a different flavor.
Yeah, and like you mentioned about yours, ours is the best syrup around.
Ours is the best in New York. Yours is the best in Wisconsin.
I hear you. Everybody's is the best. But
yes, absolutely. Yeah, run a joke, absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I will definitely post the name of your website there, danzmapleproducts.com.
Yep.
And we hope to maybe meet you at some point. That'd be great.
I hope so. That would be fantastic. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Getting the word out there about maple and a lot of the benefits of it too.
That's really what we want to do with this part of what our podcast is. So give everybody a chance to tell their story, and hopefully people will appreciate how much work goes into not just maple syrup, but really all farming.
Yep, I agree.
Good luck with the rest of your season.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a great season too.
Thank you.
Bye now.